Good morning. My name is Jason Long, and I'm here with the Knoxville Bar Association Video History Project. It is my great honor to be sitting in the offices of the Knoxville City Law Director, Charles Swanson, and we'll be talking to him today about his career, his history in the practice of law, his contributions to the Knoxville Bar Association and legal community, and anything else he wants to talk about. Charles, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time. I want to start with some easy background questions for you. So let me start out just by asking, where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Bluefield, West Virginia, which is at the southern edge of West Virginia, and lived in a small coal town in the southern coal fields of West Virginia until the age of 8. Then my family and I moved to Central North Carolina, Piedmont, North Carolina, a place called Salisbury, North Carolina, and I stayed there through my undergraduate days in North Carolina. Came across the mountains to go to law school at the University of Tennessee and could not find my way back across those mountains, and so I have been here ever since.
A lot of people get trapped in the valley. Tell us a little bit about your home life and your interests growing up in Salisbury, North Carolina.
We had a family of 4 and I primarily remember North Carolina. I have some old memories of West Virginia, but not many. Most of my time growing up, I remember North Carolina, and what I remember most about North Carolina is how important education became in my life. And that is true because when we moved, my sister, my mother and my dad and myself, when we moved to Salisbury, none of us had a college degree. It wasn't odd that I didn't have a college degree because I was only 8. But when we moved to North Carolina, none of us had a college degree. And about 2 years later, my mother, who had 2 years of college education, went back to school, completed her college degree, and became a teacher. Shortly after she completed, maybe a year or so after she completed her degree and became a teacher to bring some income into the family, my dad went back to school. He had no college education and went back to school and got an undergraduate degree and 2 master's degrees. And my sister went to college and got an undergraduate degree, and I got an undergraduate degree. I think my dad graduated about 2 years ahead of my sister, and my sister graduated 2 years ahead of me. So my family was focused on education for that entire period of time. And all of the others, except me, the black sheep in the family, became educators. So education dominated my family in North Carolina.
Well, let's talk for a second about why you became the black sheep. Why did you decide to pursue a career in the law?
You know, that's an interesting question, Jason, and frankly, I wish I really knew the answer to that. I've pondered it, and what I have come up with is 2 things. One of which is, as I was growing up, I was a prolific reader. I was one of those guys who, I had a bedtime. That was back in the days when children had actual bedtimes. I had a bedtime and I had to go to bed. I would pull my covers over my head and take a flashlight under the covers and read books. I didn't read anything that was edifying. It was mostly novels and escapist literature and things like that, but so many of them were mysteries. And the hero of the mystery was some lawyer. And so I really wanted to be the hero of my own novel. And then I saw a movie when I was probably in my early teens. I saw a movie for the first time called To Kill a Mockingbird, which has been a motivation for many folks to realize how important lawyers and the law could be in folks' life. And it certainly motivated me. That was the kind of lawyer I thought I wanted to be. And so I think those were the 2 motivating factors, because I decided by the 6th or 7th grade, I had decided I wanted to be a lawyer, and I never changed that, ever.
Well, if you had known you were going to be a lawyer for that long a period of time, what led you to pick the University of Tennessee as your educational institution?
Well, as I was coming to the end of my undergraduate career, I recognized that if I was going to be a lawyer, I was going to have a little more education than what I had. And so I applied to law schools. I applied at that point to numerous law schools because I don't think I'd ever really genuinely met a lawyer at that point. I didn't know that there were some law schools that there was no real point in me applying to. Like, I applied to Yale Law School, which was certainly an interesting exercise and a waste of time. But I applied to a lot of law schools, and I visited two, one of which was University of North Carolina. I visited the University of North Carolina and met some folks over there who taught me about their law school and led me around. And the thing that I realized is that they were really focused on what the University of North Carolina and that law degree would do for me. If I was a graduate of UNC Law School, I was going to be someone that people would want to go do their business with. When I came to the University of Tennessee, I met with some folks who talked to me about their groundbreaking legal clinic and how even as a law student, I could go ahead and start under supervision some practice of law that would be helpful to people. And where I was in my life, that was a dichotomy. I come down on the side of the University of Tennessee. I was going to law school genuinely because I thought it would be a career that would let me help people. University of Tennessee seemed to share that focus, whereas the University of North Carolina did not seem to me to do so. And so I picked the University of Tennessee and have never regretted it.
So you corrected me this morning. You actually graduated from the College of Law in 1979, right?
I did.
Okay. That was a fairly infamous class, had some large personalities. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to go to school at that time with those people.
We had, I think, just judging from what I've seen of other classes, we had an unusually close class. We did a lot of things together. We had a strong social network among one another, stronger, I think, than any other class that I'm aware of, certainly. And I think a big part of that was because we created a party in my second year of law school called the Spring Gala. And it was a party that included not only our section of Rawls through Zimmerman, but the other sections in the law school as well. And we continued that party for 12 consecutive years. Every year we would gather together for that party. And as it turned out, Charlie Sturkey and Pam Reeves and I became the sort of social chairs for that class. And we planned the parties with the help of many, many others. But we were primarily the ones who kept that party going, kept our class in touch with each other, and concerned about each other's careers and lives and families and all those kinds of things. And so we became a very close-knit class. And that was a very rewarding experience.
Do you find that those friendships and that social group that you formed back in 1979 or earlier, that you're still close to those people now, 45 years later?
Amazingly so. My children, when they got into their later teen years, it was the first time they heard about a section that was based alphabetically, and ours was alphabetically based, Rawls through Zimmerman, as I mentioned. And my children started realizing that all of their friends, their closest friends, had last names that began with letters somewhere between Rawls and Zimmerman. And so, yeah, it remained a very close-knit class and is today. Many of my closest friends
Are there
from
any
that group.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean
That's
to
right.
step on you. Are there any particular stories that you can share from that period of time?
I'll tell you a law school story. A law school story occurred during either the second or third year of law school. And it's when I learned really the difference between circumstantial evidence and direct evidence. And what happened was Ed Townsend, a friend of mine, and Roger Woolsey, a friend of mine from Greenville, Tennessee, and several others, we decided we were going to skip class and we were going to use a class day and go skiing in North Carolina. And we did that. We went skiing in North Carolina and didn't go to our classes that day. And we had a nice, lovely day of skiing on the mountains. And when I got up the next morning and looked in the mirror, I had a pair of ski goggles on my face from sunburn. Everywhere else was brightly sunburned except where my ski goggles had been located. And so I had a set of ski goggles on my face. And it was strong circumstantial evidence that I wasn't really ill causing me to miss class. It was because I was doing something else. So it was funny to a lot of people, but it was a way to learn circumstantial evidence.
I would say so. So, once you graduated from the College of Law, how did you begin your legal career?
My first real job after law school, I was very briefly with the law firm of Lockridge, Doherty, and Becker because I had clerked with them and stayed on with them and was looking for a permanent situation. And I got a call from the judge, Warren Webster, down at juvenile court, asked me if I wanted to come down and be what he called a special judge and referee. And they call it a magistrate today, but back then it was called a special judge and referee. And what it really amounted to was most days in the afternoon, there was another special judge and referee, Brenda Wagoner there, and myself and Judge Webster. We would meet together, we would take the docket for the next day, and we would divide it in thirds among us, and everybody would be responsible for 1/3 of the docket. And so that was my first job, as being a magistrate in the juvenile court.
What did you take from your time on the bench at such a young age in your career, or such an early point in your career?
At that point in my career, I was very earnest, and I was very idealistic. And the thing that I took from the career was how important it was to these young folks to have someone in their lives to steer them in the right direction. And I thought I could do that. And I remember it was unusual down in that court. Would be even unusual from today's practice, because Warren Webster happened to be the brother of the District Attorney General, Ron Webster, here in Knox County. And so we could not have prosecutors from the District Attorney's office come down to juvenile court. And we did not have a public defender at that time. So many of the young folks who came before our court charged with delinquent offenses, they were not prosecuted by a lawyer. The judge put on the proof that the judge would get a report in advance as to what witnesses were expected to be there, and so the judge would be responsible for putting on the proof. And then essentially, if there was no defense lawyer, the judge would be responsible for defending the child as well, and then the judge would decide which of the two jobs he had done better. And so that was an interesting experience. But it worked better than you might think it would because we weren't trying to get to the point of finding guilty or innocent as in the criminal court. These were children who were in trouble and did not have the appropriate background, particularly parental background and social background, to understand right from wrong so much. And so their experience in juvenile court genuinely was an exercise in rehabilitation if it was possible. And so I enjoyed the challenge of that. I enjoyed working with these young folks. I was, as I said, rather zealous about it and would spend more time than any of the other judges. They would make fun of me because I would spend so much time on my cases. When the case was over, I would spend time talking with them. I always felt I was getting through to them. I was going to make a difference in their lives. And maybe sometimes I did. What I discovered after a couple of years down there is that the same people kept showing up over and over again with the same thing over and over again. And I wasn't maybe accomplishing as much as I thought I was accomplishing. It's a job I am so impressed, so grateful that we have people across our state who do the things that they do in juvenile court, because it's so easy to become cynical. And I know juvenile court judges who spent a career doing that job and have not become cynical, still continue to do the good work and help these kids. I don't know if I could have done that or not. So I admire them.
Well, if it's any indication, your commitment to helping, mentoring, and leading younger people extended beyond your legal career, right? You were involved with some community organizations to that effect.
I have been involved in a number of community organizations that's been a real reward for me. I've been involved in Big Brothers, Big Sisters for an awful long time. My little brother, who I was matched with when he was 8 years old, is now married, the father of 3, the eldest of which is going to graduate from college next year. And I still see Daryl, my little brother, on a relatively regular basis. We still get together quite a bit. So that's been a tremendously rewarding experience for me. I've had occasion to serve on the boards of a number of local organizations and been lucky to do that because they do good work and I enjoy doing it.
Why did you decide to leave the bench?
Complicated question. One of which is because I wanted to be what I perceived to be a real lawyer, whatever a real lawyer was. And what I was doing down there certainly rang more of social work than it did of legal work. I saw my friends out trying lawsuits, doing things that in my own mind I believed that real lawyers did. I recognize with the benefit of experience, I was wrong about that. Juvenile court judges and juvenile court magistrates are real lawyers who do a tremendous job. But in my mind, at that young age, I thought being a real lawyer was something else. And so I thought I needed to make a change in my career and move on and become that real lawyer that I had in my mind. And so at that point, my friend Charlie Sturkey, one of the 3 social chairs of Rawls through Zimmerman, Charlie Sturkey was in the city law department, and he was kind enough to recommend me for a position here in the city law department. And so that was my next move. I spent 2 years as a staff attorney in the city law department.
And we'll circle around to your public service government work here in a bit, but I want to ask you first, you were with the city law department for 2 years, and then what happened?
When I left the city law department, it was to go into private practice. I went into practice with the law firm that was then known as Pryor, Flynn, Priest in Harbor. And I was with that law firm for 10 years as We did primarily plaintiff's personal injury type work and other forms of litigation. Also during that time period, through a set of circumstances, I became the lawyer for the Knoxville City Council. And I was not the city attorney as I am today. I was the lawyer for the city council, which is a separate lawyer altogether. I maintained all of my private practice, but added as a client the 9 members of the city council. So that was a real variation on the practice with Prior, Flynn, Priest, and Harbor, and they encouraged that. They felt it would be good to sort of have more practice than just personal injury practice, and so I did that. I was fortunate to practice in that law firm, to have the benefit of Bob Pryor, who in my mind, from what I have seen, is one of the great artists as a lawyer. To me, there are artists and technicians as lawyers, and they're great both sets. I was more a technician than I was an artist, but Bob Pryor had a gift for making juries understand what was important, making juries understand his clients' cases, and it was an honor to watch him try a lawsuit.
Well, you mentioned Bob, and of course he's been a mentor to several people in the Knoxville bar over the years. Who were your other influences or mentors during your time in private practice?
Well, certainly the other lawyers in that firm were mentors as well. Tim Priest, also one of the finest lawyers I know. John Harbor was both a friend, and we weren't very far apart in terms of when we graduated from law school, maybe just a few years apart. And so while John was a mentor, he was also very much a friend at that time. The other, Arthur Seymour, was one of my mentors. Probably Arthur and I have tried more zoning cases than any other 2 lawyers across the state, I expect, because Arthur always represented developers and folks who were trying to build. I always represented the city council. And I remember after many such trials, before one, we were meeting out in the lobby, getting ready to go in the courtroom, do our usual trying of the case. And I said, Arthur, I know what you're going to say. You know what I'm going to say. Is this getting boring for you? Why don't I just do yours and you do mine? Because you know exactly what I'm going to say, and I know exactly what you're going to say. And Arthur laughed, and he agreed that would kind of be fun, but probably his client would not agree to it.
I want to switch gears for a second and talk about bar associations. You have always been a big proponent and participant in bar association work. You are the past president of both the Knoxville Bar Association and the Tennessee Bar Association. So I want to ask first, how did you first get actively involved in doing bar association work?
It almost seems like it was like every other important thing I've done in the law. I was encouraged to do so by Pam Reeves, who became active in the bar immediately upon her graduation from law school. She became barrister's president at an embarrassingly early age, and then president of the Tennessee Young Lawyers Conference, which became Young Lawyers Division, and on up. And I remember at the time that Pam, one of those social chairs, came to me and said, the barristers, the Young Lawyers Organization of the KBA, needs another member of the Board of Governors, and I think you'd be perfect for that. Why don't you run for that position? And not knowing really much about it one way or the other, I did that, and that got me started in the bar, and then through my participation in the Barristers Board of Governors, I then became interested and ultimately a member of the Board of Governors of the Tennessee Bar Association, and it follows from there.
Well, we could spend our full time talking about projects and positions that you've held and done within the bar associations. But let me just ask you, what are the accomplishments that you're most proud of from your bar work?
I think from my bar work, the thing that I am most proud of is how we have worked hard together. I mean, there's very little that I personally have done that's going to make a critical change in the practice of law. But working together with some of the brightest lawyers across the state of Tennessee, I mean, absolutely from Memphis to Bristol, really good lawyers for some reason gravitated during the time that I was working in the bar to the bar, and they were interested in a number of things. They were interested in do-gooder stuff. We enjoyed doing our do-gooder stuff. This was charitable type of service that we did. We were the service part of the bar during the time that I was a young lawyer, and we did a lot, and I'm proud of all that work. But as we became a little older, we became more involved in doing things for our profession. Every TBA president, I think every KBA president, had in mind a project, something that they specially wanted to do that would improve and enhance the practice of law over time. And as a result of that, now in trial cases, you can have experts testify back to back. It makes it so much easier for the jury to be able to understand expert testimony when you have the option of letting the experts testify back to back. Jurors can take notes. Before Pam Reeves was president of the Tennessee Bar Association, jurors couldn't take any notes. They just had to remember what they could remember. And if you have a 3-week trial, that may not be the most important thing, what occurred during the first week of the trial. So jurors can do that. That was important. When I was president, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do was meet with Governor Bredesen and explain to him that if we were going to maintain the excellent bench in the state of Tennessee that we were working with, we're going to have to pay a little better than what we were at the time. And to his credit, Governor Bredesen listened to what I had to say about that, and I believe he agreed with it, because not long after that, it was announced that there were significant changes in the pay rates for the trial bench, particularly across the state of Tennessee. I'm certainly proud of that conversation. There were other people who were working on the same thing, so I certainly can't take credit for that, but I think it was an important thing. And we have a group of young lawyers who get together with each other now called, help me with this, Jason,
The leadership
law,
Mm-hmm.
Created by the inimitable John Tarpley, who will never let you forget that. But those of us who follow John Tarpley had the good sense to recognize the value of our young lawyers, our best and brightest young lawyers, being able to gather together and rely upon each other and learn leadership lessons that they would not otherwise have the opportunity to have. And that's a very special program that's been now going on for about 20 years in the state of Tennessee. And there's now a real network of lawyers across the state who were once young lawyers, and some of them aren't so young anymore, but they still have their network. They've maintained their network. And I think that's been a very valuable addition to our bar and to the practice of law. That's just a few examples of the kinds of things that you do in this professional organization that I think are important, that maybe aren't recognized.
How do you think that work, your work with the professional associations, has influenced your practice or the way you go about doing your practice?
I think it has given me perhaps a little broader vision. a little more understanding of that there are bigger things going on than just my little area that I'm working on at that particular moment. It makes me feel part of something that's bigger than myself, that's bigger than my practice, bigger than local practice. I think that's motivating. I think that's motivating not just to me, but to other folks as well. And so that's one way.
Now let's talk about your transition to work as city law director. You've mentioned that you were in the public sector in various capacities early in your career, from work in city law office to representing city council. You've been in the position as city law director now for 12 years. I think I learned this morning that we believe that's a record as the longest serving city law director for the city of Knoxville.
Former Ambassador Victor Ashe says that's the longest serving law director. I'm willing to take Victor's word for it.
Fair enough. What attracted you, both early in your career and now, after being in private practice for several years, what attracted you to public work?
It's interesting. It's exciting. It's fun to know what's going on. When I first graduated from law school, you could walk down Gay Street at 5:30, 5:45 in the evening, and it was dead. There was nothing there. You weren't sure whether you were safe down there because it felt like you were in a ghost town. Since that time, the city of Knoxville has become an actual city. It's thriving. It's gotten bigger. It's got a downtown that operates all the time. It's got a residential core of downtown residents that's growing bigger all the time. We have retail downtown. And to be just a very small part of that has been very rewarding to me. To be able to work with our members of council and to help them sort through issues. That's generally on the sideline. And during council meetings, I just try to round them up. But outside of that, I've had opportunities to have useful conversations with many, many council members who are dedicated public servants. And that's been a lot of fun. One thing that I've noticed coming from private practice, I was with Prior Flynn Priest and Harbor for 10 years, and then I was in further private practice with Sarah Shepard and Bill Minot. Greg McMillan and I formed a law firm that you were a part of as well. And I was in that practice for 17 years. So in my 27 years of private practice, I sort of developed that mentality that government workers perhaps weren't as dedicated to what they do as folks outside of the public sector. And when I got back to the public sector, what I learned was that's just not true. It's just not true. And you look at 90% of the people who work for the city of Knoxville, such dedicated employees. They care about what they do. They want to do it right. They devote extra time to it. They are really good folks who do great jobs. And I've learned that now because as a city attorney, one of the things that I do deals with discipline of employees who break the rules or whatever they may do. I spend way too much of my time on 10% of the employees, whereas 90% of them are doing terrific work. But I see it. I see it and I recognize it, and I'm excited to be associated with those folks.
Well, and I had glossed over, but you bring up your years practicing with Sarah Shepard and Bill Minot and Greg McMillan. And of course, that's when I first got to know you as well, you were kind enough to offer me a position as a new attorney coming out of law school. That was your first opportunity to really be one of the named partners in charge of your practice, right?
I was never in charge of my practice. As you well know, Jason, Sarah was in charge of that practice, and I was so grateful to be Sarah's law partner because she made the practice of law so easy, so much fun. So I could concentrate on representing clients, and Sarah would worry about those details of the practice of law that I wasn't good at anyway, and she was just superb at those kinds of things. And so I've been lucky in so many ways, and one of those ways is to be a partner with Sarah Shepard. Another of those ways was to be involved in that law firm. Well, we have 5 lawyers, maybe max at one point, and out of 5 lawyers, we've had 3 presidents of the Tennessee Bar Association. Pretty fair percentage, I would say.
And one sitting judge.
Yeah, and one sitting judge. So.
Well, I didn't want to leave this interview without taking an opportunity for you to be able to reflect upon your time there, because I know practice with Sarah has been so important to you. But I do want to jump back real quick to your position now and ask you what you see your role and the role of your office is within city government.
Obviously, the role of our office is to afford all the legal advice, legal representation, preparation of contracts, all of those kinds of things that a corporation that has 2,000 employees needs. And so we do that, and I'm proud to say that we do it with 7 real lawyers and me, and I'm proud of the work that we do. What's most personally satisfying to me about what I do now is the other lawyers in this office. It is such a joy to me to be able to I don't do much real legal work anymore for a couple of reasons, one of which because I have really good lawyers who are better at it than I am, and secondly because many of the other lawyers in this office are younger than I am, and there aren't as many opportunities to try cases anymore. And I feel like I would be selfish because I love trying cases. I love that adrenaline rush you get from being in the trial court and trying cases. But there are so few opportunities in today's practice of law that it would not be fair for me to take from them those opportunities. So what I really enjoy is getting together with each of my lawyers from time to time, almost on a daily basis, and go through with them the things that are causing them problems, the things that are difficult for them, and trying to brainstorm together to come up with perhaps innovative ideas of dealing with the situation so that we can solve those problems and move forward. That's exciting to me. I hope I'm useful in that process, but at least I'm a sounding board, if nothing else.
What's been the most surprising thing about serving as city law director, something you didn't expect when you took on this position?
Well, I had seen it for a long time when I took on the position. I guess what is surprising to me about serving as the city attorney is how much legal work actually gets done by so few lawyers. Last year, this office prepared, revised, extended over 850 contracts. We tried or resolved over 100 lawsuits. We advised, I don't know how many departments, commissions, committees, all of those kinds of things. These lawyers over here do a tremendous volume of work, and they do it well. And so I'm not surprised that they do it well because I know who they are, but I'm surprised at how much they do and how they're able to do it. and how they've adapted so well to the need to work from home through a pandemic, the need to do whatever we need to do to get our legal work accomplished. And they have really done that. They've stepped right up to the plate and done what needed to be done. And I don't think we've suffered a glitch in terms of providing legal services to the city over what has been a very tumultuous time in our history. Proud of that.
I think you should be. I think you should be, and it's clear from the way you talk about it that you have that pride. I'm going to switch gears on you again and talk to you a little bit about family.
All right.
So if you're a lawyer who has been practicing in the city of Knoxville or the East Tennessee community for the past 35 to 40 years, it's likely that if you ever thought of the name Judge Pam Reeves, you probably thought of the name Charles Swanson in the same breath, and vice versa. The two of you were a preeminent pair of lawyers and partners within our bar across the state and beyond. How did you meet? And tell us a little bit about how that relationship flourished.
We met because Reeves falls within Rawls through Zimmerman. So we met on September the 21st of 1976 when we both started law school together. And as I have mentioned to you, we kind of became the de facto social chairs for our group. We used to send invitations out to parties or planning sessions or something like that, and we would sign it, the Gang of Three. We didn't ever sign our names because people knew who the Gang of Three was. It was Pam Reeves and Charlie Sturkey and me. No one would have been surprised that Pam Reeves would have been one of the social chairs of our class. Everybody would have been surprised that either Charlie Sturkey or myself would have been included among that group of social chairs. So I met Pam in law school. We became friends, fast friends, and were friends for a long time with nothing beyond that, nothing anticipated beyond that. It was 13 years later, in 1988, that we discovered that not only were we friends, we truly were soulmates. And going to have to give me just a second.
You take all the time you need on these questions.
You know, it's been 3 years since Pam died, and it feels like yesterday in so many ways. So I still get emotional about it. But then I realize that no person that I've ever met, no person that I know of, has been luckier than me to find that person who so completed my life in so many ways. And I feel like in some ways maybe that worked for her as well. We were a good team together. We both had what Pam liked to refer to as starter marriages, where we got most of the mistakes in marriage out of the way. And then as it worked out, those marriages ended within a few years of each other, and still neither of us recognized that maybe we ought to explore one another as potential spouses. And then there was a trip to New York that changed all that. From that time forward, we were the two luckiest people I believe I ever saw.
Well, I don't know what to say to that other than I think a lot of people would agree, and a lot of people recognize that, at least those of us who have known both of you well.
Pam had an energy about her. She had a magnetism about her that drew people in beyond anybody I've ever seen. People from every spectrum of our society. You know, it didn't matter whether they were conservative or liberal, whether they were of a different ethnicity, of any kind. Pam drew people in, and they loved her, and she loved them back. And every possible way that you can imagine. And people appreciated that. And I got to be a part of that. I got to be a part of Pam drawing people in like that. And she would draw them in, and then I'd adopt them. And so it became successful in some ways.
Well, I certainly agree and see what you mean when you say that Pam drew people in. Generally, what drew you to her specifically, and what do you think drew her to you?
Don't know that I'll ever be able to answer that second one. I remember the first time I saw Pam. She was wearing a Save the Snail Darter t-shirt, and she was going around our class gathering signatures. It was back when TVA was going to build a dam, and they were going to take away farmland from a whole lot of folks who loved their farmland. And she was, as she always was, very idealistic about that, very opposed to that process of the government coming in and taking those folks' farmland away. And so she worked. There was a very famous lawsuit, environmental lawsuit, that dealt with that, and she worked on that case in many ways. But when I saw her the very first time, she was wearing a Save the Snail Darter t-shirt, and she was circulating petitions asking folks to sign. And we were in a big old classroom, and she passed it down the aisle, and I signed it, and I passed it to the person next to me, which was Billy Stokes, who, if you know Billy Stokes, tends to be somewhat conservative, really pretty conservative. He says, "Why did you sign that?" He said, "I bet you don't even know what a snail darter is." I said, "Well, I don't really know what a snail darter is, but did you see her?" I would have signed whatever petition she wanted me to sign. And that was before I had any idea who she was or how special she was. It was just, Pam had that kind of magnetism to her.
Well, I won't force you to speculate on why she was attracted to you.
No.
But I will ask you why you think overall that relationship works so well, and was not just in terms of your personal well-being and your personal satisfaction, but in terms of the community. I mean, the two of you had a significant impact over the years on the legal community.
I think it was because we were both energetic. We weren't people who would just sit around and not do much. We were always people who wanted to do things and wanted to involve other people in doing them. That's a part of it. We were continued to be idealistic in so many ways, and we were a good team together. I could calm her down a little bit, and she could stir me up a little bit, and that was a great compliment to one another. And so I joined her team of drawing people in, and we used our ability to do that, hopefully to do some good things in the community. And we were proud to be a good team, I think.
Do you think you had, I'm sure you did, so I'll just ask you, what impact did you have on one another in terms of your ability and approach to the practice of law?
You're married to a lawyer, Jason, so
Right.
You recognize that as you develop a family over time, you don't spend much time at home talking about law. You spend time talking about what play your child is in, or you spend time driving, who's going to drive to soccer, who's going to drive to baseball, who's going to do all those kinds of things. So, we would spend maybe of all of our accumulated time together, probably 10-15% of that max would be time that we would even refer to our individual practices of law. And so the rest of the time would be spent on the mundane family things that people always do. But when we did talk about the practice of law, I think we trusted each other. We trusted each other's judgment. We respected each other. We respected our respective intellects. We believed in one another. And so when Pam gave me advice, I didn't always take it, but I always listened to it. I always evaluated whether I agreed with her or not. And, you know, when she became a federal judge, one of the hardest things she had to do was sentencing of folks who had been convicted of very serious crimes. And she would agonize over appropriate sentences for cases. And we would talk, she always had a pre-sentence report that she had to go through before her sentencing process. And she would have those at home, and she would sit on the sofa and she would go through that. And from time to time she would talk to me about it, tell me about it. And I would offer her sometimes a different perspective on it. And she listened to me. She didn't always agree with me. Very often she didn't agree with me at all. But she listened to me. She respected me enough to know that maybe she ought to listen to a different viewpoint. Sometimes I played the devil's advocate on purpose. Sometimes I did it because I really felt differently. But she listened, and she evaluated it for herself, and then she did whatever she wanted to do.
Well, of course, the two of you raised the next generation of Swanson lawyers. Both of your children are practicing attorneys. Tell us a little bit about what Reedy and Amanda are doing today.
It's so easy for someone who's a proud parent of folks to bore other people with stories about their kids. And I'm no different than anybody else in that respect. I'm awfully proud of my children. Both of them graduated undergraduate and law school from the University of Virginia. And both are now practicing law. Reedy is working in the appellate division of Hogan Lovells, some other bunch of names that go behind that. It's one of the really big law firms. I think I heard him say one time when a friend asked him how big it was at that point the fourth largest law firm in the world. So they do a pretty big practice, but they have a relatively small appellate division, and he works in that appellate division, and most of his appellate work is concentrated in federal appellate work, either at the circuit level or at the United States Supreme Court level. So that's what Reedy's doing these days. His husband Jeremy, who is a graduate of Columbia Law School, is doing appellate work for the District of Columbia. So they have a powerhouse match as well. And my daughter is an assistant U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, and has just started a rotation in the major felony crimes division and what she calls guns and drugs section. And she is prosecuting cases of that sort. And I'm proud of those kids. I'm proud of their accomplishment. I'm proud of what they've done. But you know what I'm really proud of them about has nothing to do with the practice of law, that they've become lawyers. I'm proud of the people they have become. They have become such kind, caring people. You wouldn't think that about an assistant U.S. attorney, but Amanda really is a kind and caring person. Reedy and Jeremy are the same way. And when I'm around them, it just excites me, the kind of people that they have become, who love other people and really want to help and do well with other people. You know, bragging a little bit, my son, when he graduated from law school, he won 3 different awards, including the top award that they give to a law school graduate from the University of Virginia. My daughter won at her college graduation She won the award that the Virginia Bar Association gives to the person most likely to be a successful trial lawyer. I have never heard either of my children, from the day they won those awards, I've never heard them mention it again. Never. What they talk about is their friends, and they talk about the things that they are doing in their community, and they're just good people, and they're fun to be around, and they're funny. And so, yeah, I'm proud of my kids, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about them.
Well, and you may have just answered the next question that I was going to ask, and that is, if you could boil it down, I know you're proud of them, and I know that they're successful attorneys. What, in your mind, makes them successful attorneys? I'm sure the concept that they are good people who want to do good factors into that answer. But would you have anything to add to that?
Well, they have their mother's work ethic, and they have their dad's sense of humor, and both of those things are good for lawyers to have.
Do they ever look to you for advice, or vice versa?
I occasionally look to them for advice, I have to say. We were drafting an ordinance up here the other day, and we were having this problem with the wording of the ordinance with regard to this his/her problem. When you're drafting a sentence, and that you could be referring to either a him or a her as a mayor or somebody like that. And I sent them a copy of the ordinance and said, help me fix this. I hate the his/her thing. I don't like that in a sentence. How do we say it in a way that's perhaps a little more elegant than that? And they did help me with that. They helped me with that. So, but beyond that, I mean, they're out of my league as lawyers.
They would probably disagree with that. But if you have the opportunity here to say what you wish for them in their careers as they move forward in the practice, what would be your wishes for your children as lawyers?
I just wish for them to be happy. I wish for them to feel satisfied, to feel that they have done useful work, that they have done work that they wanted to do, and that they have loved people the way they should love people. And as long as they do that, they're going to be very successful, whether they continue in the practice of law or whether they take up something else.
Well, so like everyone else in the bar, I have heard you speak publicly on several occasions, whether it be in your capacity as a bar president or otherwise. And I will flatter you by saying that you're among the best public speakers I've ever heard. But when it comes to speaking about the practice of law and the importance of being a lawyer and your pride in being a lawyer, you are elevated in my mind from one of the best public speakers to far and away the best public speaker. It's clear hearing you speak on those topics that you're passionate about lawyers and about what we do. Why does it mean so much to you?
I'll try not to overdo this because I have a tendency to go off into fits of rapture about the practice of law that people don't want to hear. But I am proud to be a lawyer. I think everyone who is a lawyer should be proud to be a lawyer, should be proud to be a part of a profession that is important to this world. I don't think it's going too far to say that the rule of law is the real linchpin that holds together a civilized society, because it's how we solve problems. It's how we resolve disputes. What would we do if we did not have the rule of law and those who help implement the rule of law? And that's what we as lawyers do. We simply help implement create the rule of law. And the other option is war, or who has the loudest voice, or who has the most money, or who has this or that the most of. The rule of law allows people to work with one another. And when things become tilted unfairly one way or the other, lawyers and the rule of law bring it back into balance. We essentially, as lawyers, are the world's problem solvers. That's what we do. That's all we do every day. We try to solve problems, other people's problems, our own problems sometimes. And we try to do it in a way that works, in a way, hopefully, that works for everybody. That's one thing I was excited about, to serve as a mediator. You had the opportunity, not necessarily to make everyone happy, but to end up in a fair resolution of a very difficult dispute. And we have the capacity to do that. Lawyers are doing that every day, and I'm proud of them for that. And so I hope lawyers don't become, it's easy to be cynical. It's easy to get so embroiled in the business of law that you forget about the profession of law. And the profession of law is to solve people's problems, to prevent people from having those problems if you can. But if you can't do it on the front end so that you prevent the problem from occurring, you at least on the back end help them resolve their problems, resolve their disputes. This whole world needs that for people, and if we don't have that, we'll be much the poorer for it. So that's my light on the profession.
As I say, it always comes through when you're speaking about the practice. Is there anything else you wish that I had asked you in this interview that I haven't?
I can't imagine what it would be. I did want to take one moment of personal privilege, though, to thank you for being willing to do this. And beyond that, you've asked me who my mentors were. My mentors weren't always older than me. My mentors were sometimes significantly younger than me, just like you have been. And I've learned a lot from you. Even when I was your boss, I learned from you. Now, I didn't learn how to dress from you.
Fair. That's fair.
And thank God I didn't learn how to dance from you. But I learned a lot of important things from you. And so I want to express to you my own personal appreciation, both for doing this interview and for being a valued mentor for me.
Well, the latter point I would debate with you, other than just say I haven't had a mentor like you, and I hope I've expressed over the years how much I appreciate the relationship that we've had and what you've meant to me, both in my career and in my life outside of my career. I look at so many aspects of it and think, well, this really looks like Charles's life in a lot of ways, from the type of children we raise to the relationships we have with the women that we love. So thank you. And as far as doing this interview, when the opportunity presented itself, that's not an opportunity I'm ever going to pass down or pass up. So my final question to you is to ask you what accomplishment in your life has given you the most satisfaction.
That's a question beyond my capacity to answer. What I would say is that what I have been is the luckiest person I have ever met to live the life that I've lived. When I left the coal fields of West Virginia, for you to say that this person is going to live this life and then point out the details of my life, it would have been beyond. Nobody could have sold it to any kind of movie company because it would have been too schmaltzy, too impossible to occur. And I've been lucky to live that life, and I am so grateful for it. And I want everybody who has been a part of it to recognize how much I appreciate it and that I do realize how lucky I have been, and I appreciate everyone for being a part of that luck.
Thank you for this morning and for the time and for answering my questions.
Thank you.